Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel for another video. I'm not really that confident that a lot of people are going to agree with my stance in today's video, but that's what the comment section's for. I love being able to, have this dialogue with you guys, so don't hold back in the comments if you disagree. I wanted to come and talk about why I dislike the term almond mum so much. If you're not familiar, it is a term which has recently been popularized on TikTok. It's mostly lighthearted content with people sharing the disordered practices that their mothers demonstrated and kind of instilled in them as it relates to restricting food, cutting out food groups, chronic dieting, excessive movement, step counting, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, mostly how it was packaged up by their mothers and expressed to them as like, this is how to be healthy, this is wellness. A lot of stuff about body beliefs and fat phobia, that kind of stuff, right? And the label almond mum has come from the fact that these are the kids who'd go up to their mum and say, I'm hungry, have an almond. As has been immortalized by Yolanda Hadid in Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, who told her daughter to chew on an almond really well, which as somebody who was, I think I was in recovery at that point, I'm not sure, watched that and just saw like red flags flying out of my television screen. There's actually a lot of eating disorder stuff across the Real Housewives franchise. I've thought about doing a video on how each franchise has handled it. Let me know if you want to see that. I may be the only trashy TV person in our community. So that's where the term really came from. And lots of these videos are lighthearted. A lot of them are really clearly coming from a place of pain, resentment, all things that people are entitled to as they process and unpack their own relationship with food, body image, etc., and how those pieces have come together. I also want to say from my own lived experience, I don't want to discount what people have been through, their right to express what they've been through, their right to put responsibility where it belongs. I grew up in an almond household. It definitely contributed to a lot of my food issues from a very young age. I'm very lucky that I had parents who were receptive to me bringing this to them as part of my process of healing my own relationship with food, body, etc. They weren't easy conversations. I do acknowledge that that's not necessarily going to be everybody's experience, and that you are entitled to feel however you feel about your upbringing, especially as it relates to how it might have contributed some pieces to your disordered history mosaic. I'm not here to judge or tell you how to feel about that. But what I think is missing from the conversation is the fact that a lot of what we're seeing in these videos of present day behavior from these mothers and what's being reported about how they've behaved across their children's lives, what they've modeled, what they've demonstrated, what they've embodied, a lot of this you could find in the orthorexia diagnosis. My fear is that we're really poking fun at a population of women, and particularly age groups of women who have suffered very quietly, who could potentially never be ready to accept or look at the fact that a lot of their behavior could be incredibly disordered, even a diagnosable eating disorder, and that they have in fact been suffering for a very long time. And we see this a lot. We see this in the stereotype. We see this in how we talk about eating disorders. It really upholds that unhelpful stereotype that eating disorders predominantly affect young, white, privileged women. And by young, I mean a lot of people believe that these things happen in someone's teen years and then they just go away. They just grow out of it. They just move on. It is just a phase. I hear this from people who are my clients all the time, that they have even been told that by GPs. That is how pervasive and how popular that belief system is, that we develop these things at a young age and then they just magically go away. It will go away because it has been treated. And we have generations of people who never had the language to even understand what an eating disorder was. And if they did have the language, it was very, very outdated information, that there's anorexia and there's bulimia and that's it. And so much of what we're seeing, like I said, falls into that orthorexia category. So it wouldn't be identifiable to a lot of people purely because of the level of exposure and education they would have had up to this point in their life. Or you have people who develop eating disorders later in life, never having seen even a hint of anything disordered prior to that. This happened a lot during COVID. People of all different backgrounds and particularly ages who had never experienced anything even remotely akin to disordered behavior, who suddenly ended up with an eating disorder or somewhere along the spectrum. We discount that all the time, that there are people out there who are almost invisible in these awareness spaces. And the first real piece of awareness that we've seen discussing that is a lighthearted, jokey trend on TikTok. We talk a lot about the fact that you are not responsible for your eating disorder. You are not to blame for your eating disorder. You cannot choose an eating disorder. The same is true for any almond mum who is disordered or has an eating disorder. Then there is the line that gets crossed when that demonstration becomes instructive to their own children and they pass on patterns and behaviors and expectations which are shrouded in labels like health and healthy and wellness and well-being and being good and moral and obedient. And that then triggers off a new generation of somebody suffering in the same way. I'm not here to say that acknowledging that someone is disordered or has an eating disorder completely robs you of any capacity or entitlement to lay responsibility where it belongs, particularly for yourself more than anything. I think we can hold two thoughts in our head at the same time. Most of the mums that I see in this content in terms of their age group are absolutely people who grew up in an environment where diet culture wasn't a term, anti-diet wasn't a term, eating disorders were being referred to as the slimmer's disease and being presented as very strange and very rare and very vain and very self-indulgent and very superficial. There was no opportunity to question how they thought about, categorized, moralized bodies. There was no space for that. There was no language for that. There were no books unpacking that in the depth and to the extent that we now have available to us. And we still have a hell of a long way to go. Imagine what it was like back then. I hear from people a lot, subscribers, clients. I work with clients across all kinds of age groups who feel like for them, there is blame, there is responsibility on them that isn't ascribed to other age groups, younger age groups. And I think they're right. There are certain age groups where when I'm getting into the work with those clients, so much of our initial time is dedicated to re-educating them on what diet culture is, shining a light on their experiences in a way that is incredibly painful for them, incredibly enmeshed and entrenched in their upbringing as far as what they've told themselves in terms of what makes them worthy and what makes them lovable and what makes them acceptable, all things that we could probably resonate with, but that they have really internalized this as this is just purely what is expected of me and there is truly no alternative. I had a little bit of that growing up because I am now 35. So when I was going through the earlier development of my eating disorder, there was no alternative, no social media, no awareness about eating disorders, no media campaigns, like not even a window into an alternative. And that was in the last 35 years. So I just think that we need to be more mindful in terms of how we include and refer to people of different ages and their experience of disordered eating, disordered exercise, eating disorders, because I think we just missed a really big opportunity to highlight how these eating disorders don't discriminate as far as age goes. But I also truly understand that shining a light on how people have impacted you, particularly your own parents, is an incredibly important part of this process for a lot of people, is an integral part of their healing, putting everything where it belongs and not carrying it just by yourself anymore. I absolutely encourage you to do that. As I said, I just think we can hold two thoughts in our head at the same time and maybe extend a bit more empathy and compassion than the term almond mum implies. Like I said, I'm not really that confident that I'm going to get a lot of backup on this one, which I completely understand. Our childhoods are incredibly personal to us. Our upbringing, our relationships with our family members are so various and personal. I just wanted to maybe add a bit of nuance to what has become a fairly like black and white hashtag, and therefore a fairly black and white conversation. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below as always. I think there will be a podcast episode coming out this Friday, which is really exciting. I'll be having Holly, one of our amazing coaches, on with me talking all about the importance of friendship and connection during recovery. So keep an eye out for that. I'll always put that up on the community tab. In fact, there's a podcast tab now, which I think I can upload here. So you'll know what the situation is with that when we put it up this week. But have a beautiful week ahead. I'll probably see you next week with another video. Much love. Take care. Prayers for the comment section. Bye, guys.